All right. First of all, thank you for that really nice introduction. I am Laura Brelsford. I serve as the Assistant General Manager for Accessibility at the MBTA. I am thrilled to be here tonight to tell you a little bit about how my team and I think about accessibility within the larger agency, as well as some topics that may be of particular interest to folks with hearing loss. I did want to say before I get started, I was particularly excited to be invited to this meeting, because over the last 2 years, I've started experiencing some significant hearing loss myself connected to my underlying disability. So that experience has really given me a new perspective on the way I approach all dimensions of my life. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with the Hearing Loss Association and many of you, not only tonight, but into the future. All right, so let me dive in here. Um, just by way of background, the MBTA has a long history when it comes to accessibility challenges. In the early 2000s, 2002, a major class action lawsuit was filed against the T. Should say, I'm just seeing there's a typo there. That's not 2022, that should be 2002. Specifically, a group of riders with disabilities got together with the help of Greater Boston Legal Services and filed a class action lawsuit against the T, citing countless serious accessibility violations. At the time, the MBTA litigated the case, claiming that they were doing the best they could. But in 2006, a new general manager joined the agency, and he recognized that all this group wanted was to be able to ride the system just like everybody else. So he entered the agency into a major settlement agreement that contained over 200 complex commitments related to improving accessibility. One of them included the creation of the department that I now lead. And I'll talk more about that in a second. And really, ever since that time, back in 2006 and 2007, we've been working to deliver on the promises made within that settlement. And believe it or not, it was only this past December when the independent monitor announced that we were in substantial compliance with that agreement. Now, that does not mean that our work is done. In fact, in many ways, we're just getting started, but it was nonetheless a really exciting milestone. And the photo on the right there is one of the original named plaintiffs, Joanne Daniels Feingold, signing off on the substantial compliance agreement last December with some of her lawyers. All right, so just a little bit about my team. As I said, I lead a department called System-Wide Accessibility. We really are designed to be the clearinghouse for all all accessibility related expertise for the agency. And we work with each and every other department at the T to make sure not only that they know what the minimum regulatory requirements are, but also what we need to be evolving towards in order to provide services that really work for all of us. On a day-to-day basis, this looks like a bunch of different things. We might be looking at new station designs. We might be evaluating new vehicle designs. Oh, we may be working with our technology team to develop new passenger information systems, um, all sorts of things. We run an undercover monitoring program that puts people with and without disabilities out on the system collecting data to let us know in real time how we're doing. And we always work to ensure that there's representation with folks with hearing loss on our monitoring team because that's absolutely a critical part of our of the work that we are looking to assess. And then a big part of what we do is outreach and letting folks know what they can expect when they ride the T, what we're working on, what we're aiming to do differently and better in the future. And Nika in a few minutes is going to talk about some ways that you as riders can get involved if you're interested. All right, so moving into some specific topics, I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of tonight that may benefit you or folks that you know. The first is just an overview of our reduced fare program. So anyone who has a disability is likely eligible for a reduced fare on any of our primary modes of service, whether that's the bus, subway, commuter rail, commuter ferry. Um, Being deaf or hard of hearing is a qualification for receiving reduced fare. Reduced fare gives you a half off of all of these services, and we have a new improved online application that's much easier to use and gets you your reduced fare card a lot more quickly. So if this is something you're interested in and you're not already a reduced fare card holder, you can check out the reduced fare application online by going to mbta.com/fares. One of the major policy changes we worked on, I would say about 6 or 7 years ago, really has to do with thinking about how we ensure information is accessible for riders who are blind or have low vision, as well as riders who are deaf or experiencing hearing loss. And what we did was we worked with our technology team to essentially develop a audio visual equivalence policy. So what this essentially does is ensure that any new or upgraded systems that are rolling out at the T, whether it's at stations or in vehicles, that when we're broadcasting critical transit information, whether that's the next train arriving or elevator alert information, that when we broadcast it audibly, we're also broadcasting it visually, and vice versa. And so this plays out in a lot of new technology. At the top of the screen, you can see on the left these very large format digital screens. We now have these in every single subway station where there are fare gates. So these are not present at a lot of our street level stops, but all of our big stations have these large screens. On these screens, you can find all sorts of information from train delays to special event information to elevator outage information. And then for folks who may not be able to see the screen, the photo on the left, a photo on the right there illustrates that we've got this audio push button feature so that folks who are blind or low vision have access to that same visual information. And then one really cool feature that is rolling out on all of our new subway vehicles and some of our brand new buses are these large digital screens that display a whole bunch of information visually. So now not only do you get the information about what stop is coming up next on the digital screen, you also get information about connections, delays, and I'll talk about this in a second. We're also working to make sure that kind of unexpected changes like when the train is going express or if there's an emergency, that information is displayed on these screens as well. And the photo there on the bottom is a screen from one of our new Orange Line trains. So, this is all part of an effort to make sure we're getting information out to riders wherever they are in the system so that they can make the best decisions available to them. So, we've rolled out a bunch of new options for broadcasting information. I just talked about those large digital screens. We call them customer information displays. Those are located at every station. We also, just over a year ago, rolled out a new app specific for the MBTA. It's called MBTA Go. You can download it for free at any major app store. And this app allows you at your fingertips to pull up service information, elevator alerts, train arrival times, bus stop locations. This is a really, really exciting new option for riders. And then one thing that we also are really excited about is the fact that we've scaled up the number of staff located in stations. Because I think we all can agree, no matter how much new technology there is out there, no matter how many digital screens we put in front of people, there's no substitute for a human being who can help you if you get stuck or have a question. So most of our subway stations during most hours will be staffed with a transit ambassador wearing either a bright red shirt or a bright red coat. I do want to be really transparent here and acknowledge that, particularly when it comes to serving folks with hearing loss, there are still a lot of challenges on the system due to its age and some of the vehicle limitations we're still working with. Specifically, one thing that we experience and that we hear a lot from riders about is that on a number of our subway vehicles, if the train goes express, that's often a message that's broadcast audibly, but not always visually. So we've heard stories, and I've experienced this myself, where everybody else is aware that the train's going express. They can make an educated decision about whether or not they stay on the train or whether they hop off. But for those of us who can't hear that announcement or didn't understand it, we find ourselves stuck on the train until it gets to its destination, right? That's not okay. We recognize that and we're working really, really hard to, first of all, retire all of our old subway vehicles, but also push out some new systems that allow our control center to push visual information to the trains. And likewise, I know on our Green Line, occasionally throughout the day, the motor person will get on the PA and say, hey, for the next several street level stops, if you want me to stop, you need to hit the stop request button. That information isn't always broadcasted visually, which again is not acceptable and something that we're working on solving. One thing that is going to do that in a very comprehensive way is we are in the process of procuring a brand new fleet of Green Line vehicles. And the photo on the right is an image of what we call our new Type 10 supercar. This is a car that you'll actually get to see in action towards the end of this year. We're going to be piloting the new car towards the end of this year. Not only is this car much more accessible for those of us with physical disabilities, one of its biggest features is a fully modernized passenger information system. There are multiple visual displays throughout the vehicle, and the software is being designed to allow for true equivalence between the audio information and the visual information. So this is going to be an enormous step forward for our Green Line riders. And one thing I just wanted to touch on in general for everyone's awareness is one thing that we are constantly doing, and constantly refreshing is training for frontline employees, whether that's bus operators, subway motor persons, station agents. All of these groups get full day trainings on accessibility and serving those of us with disabilities. We spend a lot of time covering the fact that most riders who have disabilities that are entirely non-apparent, and really working to educate staff that they need to be aware of that and be ready to assist somebody no matter whether or not they look like they have a disability. And we also spend a lot of time on effective communication, ways that if you realize or somebody identifies as being hard of hearing, good basic techniques for communicating with them. So we're working on some really interesting trainings as we speak, including one for our transit police officers. But this is something that's always happening. We're always working on updating a training program. That's a big part of our work. And I could go on for many, many hours on all the other things we're doing, but I really just wanted to point you all to a great place to learn more, which is our report we put out every 6 months called our Accessibility Initiatives Report. Here you can see all of the major accessibility projects happening at the agency, with a brief description and update on each. Yeah, you can find that report by going to mbta.com/accessibility-initiatives. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that there's a whole bunch of other ways to learn more about accessibility at the T, in addition to that report. And I'm assuming you all will get copies of these slides so you can benefit from these links, but really our website is the best place to start. If you go to mbta.com accessibility, there is a treasure trove of information, including writer's guides, information on how to file complaints and questions, We also put out a newsletter every month that you can sign up for here. Um, and when it comes to filing a complaint or asking a question, um, you can call our main call center at 222-3200 or file a comment online. If it is accessibility in nature, my team will get a copy and we'll make sure that it's handled appropriately. I also just want to put a plug in for our mobility center. This is a branch of my team. If anybody here or anybody you know is interested in riding the T but feels a little bit overwhelmed by what that experience may be, we offer completely free trainings for anybody who's interested. So the contact information is here as well. Um, at this point, I always talk about how you can get engaged as riders, but I'm going to leave that to Nika in a minute. And instead, I'll just close with this slide, which is an image from a marketing campaign we ran a couple years ago, which really emphasized the fact that we recognize that an accessible MBTA benefits everybody. And it's something that we are firmly dedicated to advancing advancing from here on. Right. So at this point, I'm happy to take any questions or comments, and I'll take this down.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Laura. That was a great presentation. One of the things that's really important is that everybody should have a newsletter for this MBTA accessibility. I definitely know one, I definitely have that. So I look every month to see what the latest news, and I actually just got an email just yesterday from you guys called RTGA or something like that. Can you tell me what that stands for again?
So are you talking about RTAG, the Riders
Uh,
Transportation Access Group?
yes, okay.
Yes, yep. So that is the group that Nicolia staffs, and that is a really great way to get involved as a rider. It really is. RTAG is our official customer advisory committee. So it's an autonomous group that basically helps to ensure that we're doing what we're supposed to do, and also a great way to bring new ideas and new energy into the system.
That's that's amazing because when I got that email yesterday, I was just like, there's something called Tab, and that's like a Charlie card for accessibility, and there's a lot of information down, guys. So I'm telling you, whenever you have time, to get into that, sign up, subscribe for the newsletter, and as well as getting numerous emails from those accessibility group. So this would be a great opportunity for you guys to keep update. And if you have any questions, they are pretty responsive, actually. Um, I see that Carrie has her hand raised. Yes, Carrie, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Thank you, Jonathan. So, Laura, I was curious on the visual displays, which are very exciting to those of us that use, written English as our primary language. But how will folks that have ASL be accommodated in visual displays?
So that is a great question. So we currently do not embed ASL in any of our sort of canned visual messages. We have started embedding ASL by default in some accessibility specific videos that we're actually going to be publishing later this summer. But we have not started doing that yet in terms of information that's out on the system. That's partly related to technical limitations on the displays themselves on the vehicles specifically. Um, and sort of yeah, the spatial requirements, but you will see as ASL as a feature in a number of our upcoming training videos.
Awesome. I remember we had that conversation about that. So I serve for the statewide advisory council for the Massachusetts Commission for Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and Jennifer Ross was the one that showed me the video of what New York has for the ASL app where people will go to New York and there's a QR code and they scan that QR code and then they will communicate through their phone to a in person. So the person on the phone will be will be translating what the person in the booth is saying. So I remember Jennifer Ross said something about um, you guys trying to make that happen.
Yes, so there is an app now called which some of you may have tried out called Convo. That the New
Dashboard.
York Convo, the MTA in New York City had a pilot where they offered Convo at select stations. We have been working with our technology team to evaluate a couple options that would allow for on-demand ASL Convo was one of them, and another is a company called Ira that got its start really with real-time translation for folks who are blind, but they are now offering real-time ASL on demand. So we've been evaluating both products, both in terms of the quality of the service as well as the cost, and hopefully by the end of this year we'll have a sense of if this is something we're going to be able to advance.
Thank you. We're gonna have one more question, and then after that question, we're gonna go on to Nika Lee. So, Lindsay, do you have a question for Laura? Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. And I was just wondering if you've tried partnering with any other states and their transportation system, if that might be a, avenue to brainstorm, because obviously New York's transportation and subway system, they have Convo now with the QR code, and that's very impressive. So I'm just wondering if maybe you could partner with other states so you could share some ideas, come up with some innovations for access. Is that something that you pursued or are interested in doing?
Yeah. So that I'm really glad you brought that up. So we a few years before COVID, we met with a number of our counterparts from New York, San Francisco, Chicago, and a few other major providers, actually in New York City for a weekend-long session where we got to meet each other and talk about challenges and the things we were most excited about working on. And since that time, we have established regular monthly working groups. And the whole point of those meetings is to share information. That's actually where we learned about Canva. And we're able to share our resources as well. So it's been a really great opportunity from us to share our best practices and learn from others. So it's definitely a great idea there.
Does that answer your question, Lindsay?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad. Well, Laura, thank you so much for your time and wonderful presentation. And I'm sure that we're gonna have some questions for you after when Nika Lee is finished. So now we're onto the floor for Nika Lee. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Do you see my screen? Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. So my name is Nicolea. I am one of two RTAG transit advocates, and we work under the Boston Center for Independent Living, and our coalition and community group is called Riders Transportation Access Group. So let's do the next slide. So, as I just introduced, there is a recently increased staff. It used to just be our wonderful director, Kat Torres Radisic, who on the photo to the right is the person wearing a white shirt. Um, and now it is Daniela and myself. And we work in an office based in downtown Crossing. And just a brief overview of Riders Transportation Access Group's formation. Laura did review some of these previous dates. They may look familiar to you from Laura's presentation. Um, but just as a refresher, so in 2002, a group of 11 riders who identified as folks with disabilities, who were riders of the MBTA system, either bus or train, and the Boston Center for Independent Living, which is the organization that RTAG is run under, was represented by the Greater Boston Legal Services to file a lawsuit called the Joanne Daniels Feingold et al. Versus the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. And so by 2006, a settlement was agreed upon and reached where there would be an independent monitor, making sure that all remaining commitments would be monitored. And these commitments included stuff like fully making certain stations on trains accessible, to elevator service, to all of the concerns that were brought up during the lawsuit. And this resulted in Laura's department and Laura's incredible leadership at the MBTA with the Department of System-Wide Accessibility. And then in 2018, RTAG was formed as a community-based advisory group of the MBTA that was run through BCIL, or Boston Center for Independent Living. And we work very closely with Laura's department, and now even more close because this settlement is no longer monitored by a judge to make sure everything stays compliant, but it is now a community monitoring model where we have community members directly impacted by accessibility issues of the T, giving their opinions and feedback to MBTA staff on what should be improved. So, our current work for the past few years has been not only monitoring the compliance of the terms, such as elevator uptime, inaccessible station upgrades, and piloting new tech. I can give a few examples there. When it comes to inaccessible stations upgrades, there's a very exciting one that has just kicked off and has been announced, and folks are very excited. Symphony Station is going to close for 3 years to be fully upgraded, and that was part of our settlement and our desire to make that change. When it comes to piloting new tech, our RTAG members are usually the folks that get the shoulder tap and are asked to pilot technologies such as IRA or NaviLens or other accessibility related developments that the T is hoping to implement station-wide. We also have regular MBTA meetings with staff and folks externally to present on any accessibility updates. We do outreach to transit riders in the disability and elderly communities. We have 4 working groups, which I will get into more detail in a few minutes. And we collaborate with community organizations like yourselves and leaders in the disability and elderly community to make sure that the T is accessible for them. And the photo on this slide was a recent May 27th meeting where we had over 35 ride paratransit service users who were able to talk to ride staff and drivers firsthand and discuss feedback about the current vehicles and some input as to what new vehicles should look like. So that was a very exciting event that was made possible by the collaboration with RTAG and SWA. So when it comes to working groups, we recently kicked off 4 different working groups based on the demand that we were able to, based on the demand of what our community leaders were discussing, that these were major issues that needed a more focused meeting structure apart from general meetings that we still do and are open to the public, but we wanted a more focused conversation and group of leaders to work through these issues. So the first working group that we have is focusing on the ride, which is the MBTA's paratransit service made up of shuttles and vans for folks who are temporarily or permanently unable to use the fixed route and regular service of the MBTA. And some things that this working group gets involved in is firsthand having the ride staff at meetings to discuss their technology, their vans that they use, any contracts that they are trying to work through, some policy updates such as allowance of shopping carts, communications materials. If folks from the ride are trying to spread the word about something, they'll usually come to our tag and discuss more, and also ongoing monitoring of their spare, which is the tracking system that they used for operating. And then our second RTAG working group uh, was built out of a desire for a lot of folks who identify as blind or low vision in our larger RTAG community said that they kind of felt that their voices were drowned out by other folks' concerns about more physical issues with the T, such as gaps on train to platform or stuff like that, and they wanted a more dedicated space to discuss about their concerns when it comes to wayfinding with visual impairments. So this working group will be focusing on supporting the rollout of accessible wayfinding technologies. As Laura mentioned, there was the example of NaviLens, which is when you have an app on your phone and you scan it towards a specific code at a system and you are told audio in an audio way how to navigate that system or anything important, and IRA as well. Um, and then we have our community engagement and outreach working group, which supports the development of the community outreach plan that that Laura's team is working on, and along with expanding overall participation in RTAG from different groups, identifying best practices for neurodiversity, along with conducting surveys and outreach for students and folks from disability communities that don't really have their perspective centered when it comes to transit. And our final working group is the Municipal Coordination Working Group, which supports the development of an MBTA Interdepartmental Snow and Ice Task Force, which is, of course, a major issue, even if it's the summertime. I'm sure we all remember this most recent very, very snowy season and how that impacted public transit, along with making sure that complete streets guidelines, which are the guidelines that city staffers and planners use to design our streets, is inclusive of folks with disabilities. And its bike lanes and bus stops make sure to not take those perspectives for granted. So those are four of our working groups that are currently running. We meet every other month, and we are still looking for members. And on that note, I have this slide that also hopefully I'll be able to send um, in the follow-up to this, where in general, our general meetings, which are usually the SWA, like Laura's team, or the RIDE present about recent accessibility updates, and the general public can comment or ask questions, happen every other month in a hybrid fashion. And you can refer to the MBTA website's calendar for these meeting dates. But to sign up for a working group, um, please feel free to reach out at RTAG Boston at bostoncl.org. You can scan this QR code or call us at 866-338-8085. And I'll also, once I stop sharing my screen, I will drop the the sign up for working groups form in the chat. So, um, thank you everybody so much for having me, and I'll do questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Nika? Carrie, as usual, jumps on board for our questions. I'm worried to have to beat her for that. Yes, Carrie, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I was just wondering which of the working groups would you advise would be the best match for those of us with hearing loss to sign up for?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that the community outreach and engagement would definitely be one that I would hope that folks, I think that looking at our overall membership and folks who are most involved in RTAG, we don't have many folks in the hard of hearing community. So we would love to have folks involved in the outreach process and learning how to engage with those specific communities. Um, I also know that the municipal coordination working group, when it comes to snow removal and also complete streets, that would of course be a great place to give feedback to the MBTA directly about how that impacts the hard of hearing community. And if folks are using the ride, that is a great place to talk firsthand to ride folks. And yeah, I think that that would be my best recommendation. But the community outreach is something we're very excited about because we want to make sure that we get as many folks as possible who haven't normally been able to be involved or haven't heard of us yet to let us know how to spread the word in their communities. Thank you, Carrie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it is so important that, this is this is a great opportunity to be here because having people like Law and Nika being here tonight, able to get some feedback and able to hear from the Devon Harvey community on how they can improve in our community to make our accessible and the experience to ride in the MBTA, wherever they, the train, the bus, wherever it is. This would be a great opportunity for to like some feedback, input, etc. And of course, they're always building new things. Like just recently, you guys just finished um, the Foxborough platform over there, and what did you guys add anything over there that is accessible?
Laura, I'll pass that question to you about the Foxborough platforms and station.
Jonathan, can you repeat that question? I know it was about Foxborough, but what was the specific question?
Yes, I just wanted to know what kind of accessibility they add to that Foxborough area.
Yeah, so the folks may not know this. As recently as 9 months ago, there was only a very, very tiny short raised platform out there, and our general manager, in preparing for the World Cup, uh, gave the challenge to our engineering team to build out two full high-level platforms, which are each several 100 feet long. So it was the fastest that any MBTA commuter rail station was constructed. The primary focus was on just making sure we had basic accessibility so that folks did not need to climb any stairs or navigate any steps to get on the train. And then to make sure that staff were present on the platforms during all hours of operation. Um, there are some basic audiovisual systems out there, but that's gonna likely be coming, all of that work is gonna come in a second phase after the World Cup is over. So you've got basic compliant accessibility, but not a ton in terms of passenger information systems out there right now. Instead, there's a lot of staff there making sure everything runs smoothly.
Absolutely, it's very important to have the accessibility in communication over there. And I think that one of the questions that I've been getting a lot from the Devon Hoffian community, and this is something that we talked about earlier today before we invited these people in, is that why was there a lack of communication during the World Cup?
So was it communication specifically at Foxborough or throughout the whole system?
I mean, like for example, how can I say, like for example, if somebody were to want to drive into the Foxborough Stadium, how come they weren't allowing people with disability to park over there unless unless they cough it up for more money or something like that?
Okay, that's very interesting. So I can get some more information on that. I know that during game days, there's all sorts of major changes to the trains going in and out of the station and parking opportunities. But outside of that, there should generally be standard options available. I know that a lot of work went into pushing out information at stations, on our website, on the app that I mentioned, and just as importantly, through the media. So, I am sorry to hear that there were some gaps in that, it sounds like, but I can get some more details on what's available or not available at the station. But yes, I know this is something that it seems like it's the only topic we've been discussing at the T, inside the T for the last several months. So I'm surprised to hear about the gaps, but I can definitely take that back to our communications team.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but eventually at the end, things are always gonna work out at the end. I do want to bring up something. Someone just DM me saying thank you for having this in our new Brelsford area. We had this amazing setting up platform there. It's a great accessibility as well. and she will share the information on the team at Depth Inc. at the
Right.
Southeast region. Do you guys know anything about that at the Bedford area?
I don't think so.
That's no problem. It looks like Leslie is back for more questions. Leslie,
Yeah,
go ahead.
thank you. I do have another question, a few actually. So the visual boards that were put in, I think, are really amazing. So people who um, English is not their first language, whether they be deaf or Spanish speakers or Polish speakers, whatever it may be. How are those folks going to access translation of that information in those announcements? Is it a QR code that they'll be able to access, or how does that work for folks that English is not their first language?
So for spoken languages, the best option for languages other than English, in addition to English, is the app that I mentioned, MBTA Go. The app allows for information to be shared in, I believe, over a dozen, if not more, languages. I will say in full transparency, the app does not include an ASL feature yet, but that is something that we could talk to our technology team about and start thinking about the feasibility of what that would look like.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for responding. I do have another question that's kind of related and kind of not. When it comes to MBTA, are there going to be expansions of lines? Because so many of the stations are doing great. However, when we're talking about the west side and central, there's really not much happening there. What is expansion going to be looking like for those areas?
So
And
that is
and so I mean like what's going to be basically what's the connection going to eventually become to connect west and east?
that is a great question. I'm actually somebody who grew up in Western Mass, so the idea of someday having a connection between Boston and the Springfield area would be a dream come true. So currently I know for a number of years, but there's been a variety of studies looking at building out connections at the state level to western parts of the state. That is not something that's overseen by the MBTA. That is something that is really overseen by our kind of parent organization called the Mass Department of Transportation. Um, Based on my understanding, there are no immediate plans outside of some early studies and planning work to advance that, largely just due to, very, very constrained budgets, in some ways now more than ever. And I will also say one thing that we are really careful about at the MBTA is we wholeheartedly recognize the benefit of expansion. We just built out several new stations serving the South Coast Rail area down to Taunton, and a whole new branch of the Green Line serving Somerville and Medford. But we also recognize that we have a lot of work to do at our existing stations, including major accessibility upgrades that are needed, both in terms of physical access and communication access. So when we look at our budgets and we are figuring out where to spend our funding, we really first and foremost try to make sure we're maintaining our existing stations and improving accessibility at them. And then work to explore expansions with MassDOT. outside of that where it's feasible? That's a great question, though.
That is a great question. It's one of those things where obviously we're always going to have to deal with the expansion, the budget. Money comes to the play, and of course, it's one of those things that we have to be careful when it comes to spending. And of course, we always want to get things done and to expand it, especially when it comes to accessibility and communication access. So it looks like we are running out of time. Before I share the upcoming events, does anybody have any questions before we go on to the next slide? Anyone? No. I do understand that you do want to go outside and enjoy the beautiful weather. So I'm gonna I'm gonna move as quickly as possible. So here's our upcoming waiting to there we go. So here's our upcoming events for this month and next month. So as far as right now, we got a disability reframing, celebrate our childhood on TV. So we attended that last year. It was so much fun. It was a great opportunity to be there to meet all variety of individuals with disability, and this is going to be at the GBH Studio in Boston on June 25th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. on Friday or Saturday. I'm not sure, but it was so much fun. We are going to be there with the table, so definitely visit us. And we have a QR code, or you could go on the GBH website and you can register to get a ticket. It's a free event, free ticket, so feel free to get it on. And of course, as what we talked about earlier today, the HLA Boston chapter, the Deaf Inc., and our two wonderful guest speakers are going to be there that day on the 2026 ADA Day in Boston at the Copley Square Park. Again, it's a great opportunity for connection, network, meet a variety of people with disability. It's going to be a bunch of table vendors and a great opportunity to meet the mayor of Boston. She's been there for the past several years, and it's always a great time, a great time to celebrate our ADA Day. And then, and not at least, Disability Pride celebration at the Museum of Science on July 25th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's always so much fun every year, and the Museum of Science has tons of guest speakers, tons of accessible organizations, business, with table vendors, etc. So this would be a great opportunity for networking and connection and feedback and so forth. And if you guys want to have more information about this, please feel free to email us, and I will pass along with the information that you need. We're still waiting to hear from the Museum of Science for ticket information. And I know it's a little further down the road, but hey, this is a great opportunity to spend time with the deaf and hard of hearing community for Walk for Hearing on October 4th at 1255 Soldier Field Road. Great day. We already got the Boston Bruins national anthem singer going to be performing. We got several sports team mascots that are going to be there. We got hopefully again like last year, we're going to have fire trucks there. It's going to be one of those accessibility communication day for us to just kind of like get together and have fun. There's going to be food, music, sketch artists, face painting, music, everything. So again, October 4th. You can check us out on on hlaboston.org for more information, or you could email us for questions on hlaboston@gmail.com. And trying to go to the next slide. And of course, how to get in touch with us. Like I said, website, email. We got several social media and YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. So I just want to take this quick opportunity and say thank you to Laura and Niki for tonight, for being a wonderful guest speaker. And I hope that everybody is educated about this amazing presentation. If you have any questions in anything, please feel free to reach us out. We really hope to see you guys on ADA Day. So Nika and Laura, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. It was great to meet y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much. And have a wonderful night. Enjoy the beautiful weather while you can. Have a good night, everyone. And also, I just want to say thank you to the ASL translators of making their time
Thank
for
you
us.
very
So
much.
thank you
Have a
for
good night,
being there.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.